Let's talk about Pixel Fold 2. So last night I am browsing the interwebs looking for things to talk about here on this very YouTube channel, and I came across a couple of tweets from Ross Young. Now they are, you could say, an expert in the supply chain side of things. Particularly their expertise is with displays. Ross has broken news on many different occasions by having insider information on displays being manufactured that would then go on to be in devices that we would report on, come to know, and love. So if he knows what size the display is and who's ordering it, you can kind of figure out what's going on. So they had a couple of tweets that I found very, very interesting. Let's take a look here. I've screenshotted them. Ross Young, the leaks on the Pixel Fold 2 don't have the display sizes right. 8.02 inches for the foldable display, 6.29 inches for the cover display. Panel production starts in April. It is coming. Now, we got to dive in a little bit deeper here because we need to know what the quote-unquote wrong sizes were. So if we go to SmartPre, you will see the numbers that we're talking about. Of course, this was made in conjunction with, I believe, yes, OnLeaks, who has a great reputation. And the numbers they gave were 7.9 inches and 6.4 inches. This is very, very interesting. So the cover display evidently is smaller than they are saying, and the internal display is slightly larger than they are saying. So we got to kind of think about what exactly this means. But before we do that, I want to rewind a little bit and show you guys something. All the way back 4 months ago, friend of the channel, Greggles TV, posted this video where they said from a reliable source they were hearing the Pixel Fold 2 would have an 8-inch main display and a 6.3-inch cover display. Let's go back to Ross Young here. 8.02, we could call that 8. 6.29, we could call that 6.3. Now, when that got posted 4 months ago, I made my own video where I did some math. I basically measured out what kind of device would be able to have both of those screen sizes, and I made a paper cutout to sort of compare what that would look like with the current Pixel Fold. Editor Shane here to clarify something quickly that I forgot to mention in the video when I was filming. How did I come to this size cutout when all I had was the screen size? Because this cutout is meant to represent not just the screen, but the entire device. What I did is I took the measurements of the Pixel Fold, and then I took the screen measurements of the Pixel Fold, and I basically took the difference between those two as a ratio, and then I added that to the screen size measurements that Greggles had in his video, and this is what I came up with. So basically, this cutout is those measurements, assuming the same size bezel as what we have on the cover display of the original Pixel Fold. I just took my paper cutout, and I took the dimensions given on SmartPre, which they give right here, 155, 150, and 57. Obviously, the thickness is not relevant. But these first two numbers, I took these first two numbers, I plugged them in to compare sizes, and I had to scale it right. But I held my paper cutout up to the screen, and I scaled it, and eventually I arrived at a place where the aspect ratio was effectively within margin of error of my ability to cut accurately. It was identical. So what am I getting at here? What I'm getting at is that I made this paper cutout with the measurements that we now are getting from Ross Young. We are getting the exact same measurements from Ross Young, and I compared that to the millimeter specific measurements we got from OnLeaks, and they look like the same device. And let me go a step further to kind of hammer home that this is the roundabout correct size. We have it in millimeters. If we change it over to inches, we should be just a shade over 6 inches tall. And as you can see, we should be just a shade under, notice I said 6 inches in terms of the width. And notice that we are, and I think I probably have actually cut it slightly wider than it needs to be, but you can see we're slightly under 6 inches on that axis. So again, I think This is pretty darn close to the size and aspect ratio of the Pixel Fold 2, and I made this cutout like 4 months ago. So the next thing I want to do is I want to take those inch measurements for the screen, and let's see if we can make those actually make sense as well. So let's say basically 8 inches, okay? So again, this is the measurement of the entire device, not the screen. So let's go up here to the corner, and let's come down to this other corner, and that is 8 inches right there. So that leaves us plenty of space for a little bit of a bezel, right? If we move it to about there, now we have a little bit of a bezel all the way around the device, and I think that that 8-inch mark absolutely is viable. Again, this is a paper cutout, so it might not be perfect. That does look like a slightly large bezel. I would bet it's probably smaller than that, but biggest thing is an 8-inch screen could fit on that device. 6.29 inches for the cover display. So if we go again, diagonal, for the entire device, we're definitely bigger than 6.29 inches. But we have to kind of mark where that 6.29 inches would be. I believe it would be somewhere just after this tall bump there in between these two. So it would be somewhere about there. And so if we kind of slide this thing down to allow for a hinge and to allow for a bezel, right? Something maybe about like that. We're really not too far off. I'm going to stake my flag right here. This is what the Pixel Fold 2 is going to look like. And if we take that confidence and we put it next to the original Pixel Fold, I think that this is about as good as we're going to get right now in terms of comparing these two devices. So let's do that. Let's look at the width of this device. It is nearly the same width as the original Pixel Fold, and coincidentally, Mr. Ross Young agrees that is going to be the case. It is taller than the Pixel Fold. Let me grab my OnePlus open, because I think it is probably a crazy close approximation as well. As you can see, maybe slightly taller. I don't know, maybe not. Maybe it's the exact same height. As far as the width goes, it's really close, maybe slightly wider than the OnePlus Open. And if we open this thing up and overlay it on the Pixel Fold, you can see slightly more narrow overall body of the device, but a device that is, as we've already seen, quite a bit taller. Let's do the same thing with the OnePlus Open, and you're going to see that it is remarkably similar. Basically, just a larger OnePlus Open, and this should not come as a surprise to anyone who is a long-term viewer of this channel, because I basically told you all this, a couple of weeks ago? I showed you these devices in a digital form anyways, compared to this. And just for anyone who has missed that digital comparison, Pixel Fold 2, Pixel Fold, OnePlus Open, Z Fold 5, and then the rumored dimensions of the Z Fold 6 all overlaid here. Notice that the Pixel Fold 2 in green is among the largest devices. If you pay attention to the green and the red, how close does that look to what I just showed you? Let's get rid of the Z Folds really quickly, because honestly, there's not a lot of change between those, and they're not particularly relevant to this video about the Pixel Fold 2. Again, how close does that red and green comparison look to what I just showed you? Again, with me cutting things out by hand, I think that's pretty doggone close. And if we get rid of the OnePlus Open and just do the Pixel Folds together again, that's pretty much exactly what I just showed you from my cutout from, again, 4 months ago. Of course, not only do we have photos of the Pixel Fold, we do have these renders of the Pixel Fold 2, I should say. I'll link to this article once again in case you've just missed it. Great stuff here by SmartPre. So at the end of the day, kind of, what does this mean if we wrap it all up? What I think is going on here is I think that there was just an error in the reporting on SmartPre. I think that the reporting from Ross Young and most of the reporting from OnLeaks on SmartPre can be reconciled. You can take the overall body dimensions that SmartPre OnLeaks gave us, and they still mesh with the screen dimensions that Ross Young is giving us. So like I said, I think that there's a little bit of an error there, but you can merge these two and it still makes sense. Is it possible that SmartPre got the screen and the overall dimensions wrong? Absolutely. But it doesn't necessarily have to be the case, basically, is what I'm getting at. This is still, I think, remarkably close to what we're going to be getting. I think that they just had a simple error when they reported the screen dimensions. I think that that's what it is. I think there was a slight mistake there. Slight is a good adjective for it. This does not radically change what this device is going to look like. And again, Ross's and OnLeak's information can be merged in a coherent way, I think, as you have seen. So guys, that's all I've got for you on this one. Subscribe for more content just like this. And until next time, stay nerdy, my friends.